Welcome to the Wellford Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Roberts. I'm the Chief Business Officer and a co-founder at Wellford. In this series, we explore the evolving world of medical cannabis through real patient stories, expert perspectives, and insights from healthcare professionals and growers. The views shared by our guests are their own and may not reflect those of Wellford. Our first guest is Ian Foster, also known as Bigg Fozz. He's a veteran and a patient at Wellford Clinics. Fozz is a wonderful human, and it was such a pleasure to speak to him, as always. Okay, here we go. Bigg Fozz, Ian Foster, welcome to the Wellford Podcast, my friend.
Good to see you, Josh.
Good to see you, as always. How's it going? What's new?
It's been really, really good. And the internet side of things is doing quite well. I think everything's kind of fitting into place now. The legislation's kind of matching up with society. Everyone's accepting the fact that patients are now out there and legal, and things are kind of starting to really take the first steps into becoming a brighter future, I think.
Yeah, medical cannabis is definitely moving in the right direction in the UK. Europe is finding its feet finally. But yeah, I'm excited to have you on today to talk about various things. We don't have to just talk about medical cannabis, but you're an interesting cat and a funny guy, and we've got to know each other over the last year and a half, and it's just been it's been great to get to know you and understand where you're coming from, and that's why I wanted to have you on as our first guest to just talk about medical cannabis, about the fact that you're a veteran, about your advocacy for medical cannabis and why there's literally thousands of patients out there that love you. And, I have never seen so much love come out of one person. I think you're a really inspiring guy. I've actually picked up using your term "one love" because it's just, it's straight up goodness, And so I was just excited to have you on to chat more, get to know you more. And I think we can just start at the beginning. Can you share a bit of your background and,
Definitely.
Your time in the service, just kind of who you are?
Yeah, so I joined the army straight after school, and I was happy in the army in my career. I was kind of opposed to cannabis at the time. It was still a banned substance, and I did have a couple of friends who used to take it back on Civvy Street, but it was always a recreational kind of thing for me. So I kind of carried on with my military career, and I never looked at cannabis as an option ever until I kind of developed PTSD. I broke my back in the army, and I developed PTSD, and I was medically discharged. And at the time, I was on quite a lot of painkillers from the doctors, and it took quite some time to find out what medications worked and what would, have a negative effects and stuff like that. And it was just a miserable experience, I believe. The whole experience was just miserable for me. I never really got the kind of help I felt I needed. That all the problems were still there. And now I was just taking tablets, which were creating other issues. Like I was having stomach problems, cognitive problems. I was forgetting a lot of things, as I was always on the morphine and stuff like that. So I kind of pulled away from it all and went down the cannabis road. And to be quite honest, I've had more of a positive experience on the cannabis journey than I did on the meds, so to speak. So I've stuck with it, and I've kind of tried to learn more about cannabis so that when I'm talking to other people, I can have a good idea of what I'm talking about, and just kind of explain to people that there is other options out there, and cannabis isn't this drug that we've all been told. In the past, it's like something that you want to stay away from. It's dangerous. It'll destroy your life and stuff like this. But I don't seem to have experienced that type of, or that side of the cannabis world, to be honest. It's definitely saved my life, and it's brought me a lot further in my journey than controversial medication actually did.
Yeah. I mean, when you were a vet and you got back from, where were you? You were in Afghanistan.
I've been to Afghan, yeah.
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 When you got back, like, what was the transition like coming home? And what was it like with the people around you, or any of that? Like, I'm interested in what that part of your life was like.
So when you leave Afghanistan, you go to Cyprus to do like a decompression, it's called, and they take you there for like a week, and you basically just sit on the island. They get you drunk every day. You
Really?
just see how, free beer, and you just basically sit with your friends and wind down for like a week or two before you come back to the UK, because it's obviously a different world out there, and they're trying to show soldiers that what's happened out there can't come back home with you. What happened out there stays out there. So they bring you to Cyprus, where they can kind of keep an eye on you before they integrate you into Civvy Street. If there is any issues, hopefully they pick it up there and address it before it becomes more of a problem. Now, they do give you alcohol and stuff, which you've not had for 6 months, so people get drunk really, really easy. And
Yeah.
there's bodies of men lying in bushes everywhere, all on the way back to the camp. It was a brilliant experience. But that's when the real truths kind of hit in. That's when people realised some people weren't returning the same as they were when they went. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of baggage coming home with people, so to speak, like PTSD. But because of the way the army works, soldiers kind of shy away from help when it comes to PTSD. They don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. It's a career-ending situation. So if you talk about mental health problems, the chances of you keeping a weapon and staying in the job you're in are very slim. So these are problems that soldiers don't really talk about. They kind of shy away, and it's only really exposed when it's that big of a problem that it's undeniable. That your comrades can see that you're actually struggling, and it's them who normally step forward and say, you need some help.
Yeah.
But that didn't kind of happen with me, because when we came back from Afghanistan, my regiment was moving to Germany. So we had to pack up all of our stuff and kind of make the transition as a regiment to Germany. And on this exercise we went on to make sure all of our kit worked, I broke my back and I was kind of exited from the unit and never really seen them again. So I didn't spend too long with my regiment when coming back from Afghanistan for my friends to see the problems that I was having. And because I spent a lot of time on sick leave, I spent a lot of that time on my own and not around supportive people who would have noticed, the PTSD and stuff like that. And at first, I didn't really notice I had PTSD because I had my back problem. I was more focused on trying to recover from my spinal injury than my PTSD. But it just started creeping and getting worse and worse until it became undeniable and then became a bit of a problem in my life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my exit from the army. And that's really where cannabis kind of came into play, because my friends around me were consuming cannabis and they'd say, why don't you just, relax and have a spliff and chill out? And then I'd be like, guys, that was years ago. I was 17 years ago. I've left, that type of life behind me. And I never really considered it until I did consider it. I had a drink with my friends and, one thing led to another. We had a little smoke in the back garden. And I instantly felt this, like, so when you got anxiety and you can't kind of calm down, it just fell out of me. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was so anxious until the anxiety went away. And I realized I'd been living in this perpetual state of anxiety for quite some time. And everything kind of just seemed calm, which led to me obviously overdoing it. And I went a bit white that night. I kind of enjoyed the calm a bit too much and went a bit too far.
Yeah.
And then it kind of made me sick. And I thought, this is a mistake. But going home and kind of thinking about what we'd done, I woke up the next day and I'd slept all night. And I don't sleep without having terrible sleep. or especially waking up in the middle of the night. There's never a night where I go to sleep and I'm fully asleep. So I'd woke up in the morning and I thought, wow, I actually slept really, really well. And I feel quite good. I don't feel stressed. I don't have anxiety waking up. But then it kind of wore off and anxiety kind of kicked back in and everything went back to normal. That's when I noticed that something was happening. I didn't understand at the time what was happening, but I could tell that there was a change. There was a difference in my personality and everything really. So I decided to kind of experiment, but going forward, I didn't want to just consume cannabis and go white. I wanted to find the right balance and see if I could mainly just sleep. If I could take it of an evening and sleep, then I was happy with that. That was going to be, the be all and end all. But I didn't realize that it kind of snowballed into this entourage effect, and it started helping other parts of my life. It started helping me eat properly, regulate my temper. Once the anxiety kicks in, I'd kind of go in myself and I'd be angry with myself. And then it's like a snowball effect. You just go round and round in circles. Introduce the THC and it just disappear. But then I'm in a battle with myself, like, is it disappearing? Or am I just convincing myself it's disappearing so that I can take more drugs? That's the type of attitude I had, because I was still a soldier and drugs were still, something we stayed well away from. But I had this fight with myself because I could see that it was having a benefit. But I knew that this road could ruin my life. If people found out I was taking cannabis at the time, it was still highly illegal. It hadn't been classed as a medicine back then. So the negative effects that came with it outweighed the positives, which meant using it in the manner which I do today is impossible. And legislation kind of helped open that door, which I'm extremely grateful for, because without it, people like me would still be kind of hiding inside, just trying to get rid of that anxiety, when in actual fact we should be out living our lives and integrating with society and communicating with our friends and stuff like that, where when it's illegal, so to speak, you can't really express yourself in the same way, can you? So I'm happy that the legislation's changed in the UK and has now allowed people like me to find an alternative medication and help others, because for PTSD, once you've tried cognitive therapy, there's not much else. There's tried cognitive therapy, and once that doesn't work, there's not much else to kind of move forward with. So cannabis is, I wouldn't say it's a miracle drug, but I'd say it's definitely a medication.
The part of you that's, I think the coolest part that I've noticed is, because I've been following you on TikTok and just watching how people respond to who you are and, what you tell them, is just your advocacy for medical cannabis is one part. But I think it's just the fact that you have the biggest heart in the UK and you actually care about the people on the other end of these TikTok messages, which is just atypical for anyone on the internet. You do things, out of the goodness of your heart for free. And I've seen you go out of your way to help people, using pounds from your own pocket. And can you just talk about why you're like that, how you became like that? Had you always been like that, or was something happen?
Kind of. Well, I grew up in an area where not a lot of people had a lot of things. So sticking together was kind of, a core moral value growing up. Everybody around each other kind of helped each other out when they needed it, really. And then when I kind of left the army, I fell into a place where I just quickly realized there was no help for people like me and zero support whatsoever. And even being a disabled veteran and, having that kind of support network that veterans have, there was no help for people like me once cognitive therapy had kind of finished. So I found myself lonely and there was no way to turn. And then when cannabis became legal, I'd go to my GP and I'd sit down and say, cannabis is now a medicine and I'd like to go down this road. And the attitude that I'd get from the GP was just terrible. Some of the things the GP said to me were just really, really wrong. And it was at that point where I realized if I don't do something to kind of help this doctor understand that he's wrong, then we're just going to keep going around in circles. And I'd sit down and I'd go away. I'd find out more educational information about cannabis and the benefits and, weigh the pros and the cons out. And then I'd go back to him and I'd put it to him. And he basically, my GP, I gave up when my GP said I was delusional for believing that I could get cannabis for a mental health disorder like post-traumatic stress. He then kind of leaned over and said, "You do know cannabis causes mental health problems?" And it was at that point where I stood up and I said, "No." I said, "This is wrong. Whilst there are people who take cannabis and have mental health problems, that is, undeniable. I don't believe cannabis is what causes them problems. I believe they've got underlying health conditions and cannabis just isn't helping them people. However, I don't have them underlying health conditions and you can't judge me like you're judging them. And you must take me as, as I come. And I've used it now for some time. I can see the benefit and I'd like my doctor to be supportive." And he said, "No." He said, "I'd like you to stop coming here, stop asking me, and stop wasting my time and everybody else's time." But at the time, I knew cannabis was actually accessible, so I was in the wrong place. So I had to figure out, how do I get medical cannabis legally without my GP support? And that's when I found private doctors like Wellford and other clinics that I was with before Wellford. And that's really where the door opened. Because I didn't know you could go down the private road. I didn't know you could just go and pay a private doctor and see somebody else, I grew up on benefits and in the military where it was all NHS. So to see this new avenue kind of woke me up and made me understand that there's a lot of people in the UK that don't know about this. And if they did know about this, maybe their lives could be different, because at the time I had people like the housing coming to my house and saying, "Your property smells like cannabis and we're going to kick you out the house because of this smell." And I'd say, "Well, where's the problem? You can smell a smell, but where's the actual problem? Am I causing a disturbance?" And they'd say, "Oh no, the neighbours just don't like the smell." And that was basically it. And I said, "Well, they spray things in them foyers that I don't like the smell of. Does that mean I get to complain and kick them out for spraying air freshener,
Yeah.
And they were like, "Well, no." I said, "Well, hang on. If it's all about the smell, then maybe that's what we're here for."
I don't like the pine tree air freshener, pal.
Yeah. And that's what I was like. So we got into this argument, and then they were basically like, "Look, if we smell it again, we're going to kick you off the property. You're going to be a homeless veteran. Don't do this to yourself." And I said, "I'm not doing it to myself. You're doing it to me. This is your doing." So then I applied for a medical clinic and I got accepted and I got prescribed, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. So when they came back to my house, they came in force. They came with the police. They raided me and they basically said, "This is the end. Enough is enough. You cannot take this medication and stay in this house." And I passed them my prescription. I said, "But it's a medication prescribed by a doctor and I'm a legal patient, which means I'm covered by the Equality Act." And I said, what's that?" I said, "That's the same legislation that protects disabled people and, makes life equal for other people." So they took the Equality Act and my prescription. I said, "We will be back." And nobody ever came back. So I phoned them and I was like, is it a problem? Is there still a problem? And they're like, no problem at all. I said, "Why has the problem disappeared?" And it's basically because now that I'm legal, I'm legally protected. But beforehand, I wasn't. So they could come down on me and discriminate against me, abuse me, threaten to kick me out of the house, and use all of these agencies against me. because I wasn't legally prescribed. But as soon as I got that prescription, all of that noise just went away. And that's when I realized I have to do this for other people. There are so many people in the UK struggling and who are in this exact boat. And they don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn. There's no information on the internet. If you have a little Google and try to find out, there's nothing there. There's nobody advocating. There's no single person on the internet saying, you can get medical cannabis and this is how you do it. You know, it's all kind of behind paywalls and closed doors. And sometimes it's that stressful that people just give up. People who are really stressed out can't navigate the system.
Yep.
So that's when I decided to create Bigg Fozz. And in the early days, Bigg Fozz was a character. It was a cartoon character. I used an emoji cartoon over my face. And I created these videos, which were kind of out there.
I've seen a couple. They're bloody hilarious, man.
Yeah. They were out there. Me and my partner, we'd take hours making these videos. But we put them all together. And it created an absolute vibe. A lot of people in the UK started messaging me saying, like, you're going to ruin your whole life by going down this road. And I was like, what? Because it's a plant. And they were like, yeah, you're a soldier. You've got an excellent career path. You've done all of this. And it's all going to get taken away from you. And I said, well, take it. At the minute, it's not benefiting me anyway. You know, like I'm struggling. I'm being helped by this substance that everyone's demonizing, and I'm going with it. So, love me or hate me, that's where it's going to be. And I did lose quite a lot of friends. You know, military friends stepped away from me straight away. They didn't want nothing to do with me. Family stepped away from me straight away. It was like, you know, a druggie. That's what I was known as, a druggie. And all the things I'd done in the past were just irrelevant. The time served in the army, irrelevant. And I sat there and said to my family once, so it was only a couple of months ago, you guys were all sitting there calling me a hero. I said, and now I'm a druggie. So what changed? Because I'm still the same person. I said, so how have you gone down from this attitude and telling me I've done really well with my life, I should be proud, so like now I'm some type of druggie? I said, I've not changed in any way. I just now consume cannabis. And I said, I don't consume it whilst I'm driving. You know, I take it in a professional manner. And I'm taking it seriously. And no one didn't believe me. It's like, no, it's a drug. It causes mental health. You're going to be schizophrenic. You're going to have psychosis and all this, that, and the other. And I was just taken back by it. So I decided to learn more. And then when these people would have their opinion, I'd put them on the spot and I'd question them on it. So I'd go back to the doctor and I'd sit down and he'd say, oh, it causes schizophrenia and depression and psychosis and stuff. And I'd say, well, where's your peer-reviewed evidence to suggest that? Because the UK's drug minister, Professor David Nutt, seems to suggest differently. And do you have a different opinion than one of the UK's top doctors? And if so, can you provide me the evidence as to why you've got a different opinion? Because I'm confused. And the doctor would just sit there and wouldn't know what to say, but it would wind them up. So they'd kind of get frustrated with me. And then I'd see them flapping. And they'd be like, just get out. You know what I mean? Just get out. And that's when I knew I had an argument. And GPs weren't the be all and end all of, you know, their say wasn't the end of this. And they needed to educate themselves. And then I just started fighting it. And I started bringing the education to the table and bringing the facts to the table and just kind of separating, you know, the facts and the bullshit that was going on. Social media's helped me do that massively because when people can judge and point a finger, other people can get in the comments and kind of have an argument, a debate. And that's what creates, you know, the education around the subject. If you don't know, you have to have a conversation with someone who does. And social media was bringing all of these people together. I'd have police officers saying, it'll ruin your life. And then I'd have other police officers who were cannabis patients saying, well, hang on, it's changed my life. And it was like, well, are you both right? Are you both wrong? You know, what's going on? We need to kind of put all of our bias aside and just pull the facts out. And then my brother sat down with me, and my brother's gay, and he says, "Do you know what? You're basically going through what we went through when the legislation changed." And I said, "How so?" I said, gay people were getting burnt in the street and beat up and stuff, and that's not happening to cannabis patients. And he said, no. He said, "It's the stigma." He said, when gay people were allowed to be gay and the law changed, he said, we went from being illegal to being legal. He said, but the attitude of the public didn't change. He said, we'd still walk down the street and people would still call us slurs, and, they'd know we were gay. They'd call us gay, and they would treat us differently because of it. And I said, yeah. And he said, but then we started suing people. He said, you can't behave like that. So people would start getting taken to court. And now their opinion has financial consequences, which means they maybe might have a different opinion next time. And they might hold their breath the next time they want to, slag somebody off or call them slurs for being gay. And I said, you know what? You're kind of right. He said, you're in the same boat. He said, it's now legal, but everyone's got an opinion because nobody's suing anyone. He said, there's no consequences for your actions. He said, you just went, on holiday with the clinic, and look what happened with Ryanair. I said, yeah, you got a point. And he said, that's the type of behavior that is in society. And unless you snip it in the bud, unless you do something about it, it will continue. He said, we just didn't accept it, and we collectively got together and we started suing people. And I said, well, did it change? He said, absolutely. He said, everybody's now got a gay best friend. And I said, he said, and that's exactly what it'll happen with cannabis. He said, until you start standing your ground and fighting your corner, he said, people will treat you indifferently until you force them not to. He said, and once people realize that people like yourself aren't out there robbing their nan to pay for their habit, or, driving around off your nut causing accidents, then people will begin to respect people who take cannabis. Yeah. But at the moment, there's this recreational stigma surrounding cannabis, whereas the youth are taking cannabis, getting absolutely off their head and becoming a problem or developing problems, which I personally believe, like psychosis and stuff like that, isn't helped by cannabis at all. But I don't believe it's caused solely by cannabis. These people have already had issues in the past, and then they've gone on to cannabis because friends are using it, and it's kind of made the situation even worse. And then the doctors instantly blame the cannabis because it's an excuse rather than solving the problem and getting down to the actual nitty-gritty, what's causing psychosis. It's just a blanket blame. But I think David Nutt kind of wiped the floor with that theory by saying, we're not prescribing to anyone who's got psychosis or schizophrenia. And that should mean, by your recognition, that all of these people who are prescribed are going to develop psychosis and schizophrenia, because that's what you say, and none of them have. Which is evidence to me to suggest that cannabis doesn't cause schizophrenia or psychosis, but it doesn't help them who have got it. Now, there are some people out there which I do believe are benefited with cannabis. There's a guy on TikTok called Shiva. He's a really good guy. He's a schizophrenic guy. He'll tell you straight up. But he's on medical cannabis and he finds benefit. But then there's other people that don't find benefit. So to blanket kind of punish everybody because of a few people's negative reactions, I think is wrong. And I believe more science needs to be behind these excuses. And the only way to get there is to be the voice, is to stand out, get yourself out there and prove people wrong. So that's where Bigg Fozz has come from. We've developed from a cartoon, which is, I kind of got exposed. So the faces came off, and I'm out there. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed at all about taking cannabis. It's massively changed my life for the better. And I believe it can help many, many other people. So I'm not going to kind of give up until I feel the UK is at a place where cannabis patients are respected. And then I believe, we can move on to something different. But in the meantime, I think educating people around the benefits and the negatives, then without that, we're going to be nowhere. We're just going to be sitting in this pool where we're all staring in the pot and everyone's fighting with each other. So that's where we've come from. That's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a while, right? Like anything does when it's new, and there's a lot of fear around it. But yeah, we're going to stay and fight, and because we know it's a good cause.
Yeah.
So, how did you first hear about Wellford Clinic?
So, I think you'll remember I was asked to go to Product Earth down south. I've been to a couple of Product Earths, and last year Product Earth was called off because I wasn't going to go in the first place. A lot of people said the location of this event is going to be an issue before it was even put on. And people said, please don't go to London. Don't go to this place. Stick where we already know, where we know best, where we have no problems, because this is going to be a problem. And it was. People consumed medical cannabis inside the building. The owners of the building cancelled the whole event and it was called off. However, I was still traveling to the event as it was called off. So I got there on the day they decided to call it off. And I was pretty devastated. And I was supposed to go in there and talk with the medical clinic that I was currently with at the time and make some content. I decided to use my own money to go down there to make some content and talk about the benefits. Whilst I was sitting there, kind of reading their fridge in their little... we broke in and we were robbing all of their juice out their fridge, waiting for them to turn up. I kind of looked to my left and I could see you and the guys packing away. You had obviously decided there's no one coming, no one's allowed, so we made it pack away. And you had this big board behind you, and on that board it said non-remediated, organic, no fertilizers, no pesticides, clean green, certified organic. And I thought, bullshit. We have now got liars in the camp. So I decided to go over and have a look, because my impression was all medical cannabis is remediated. There is no organic. There's no companies out there that have got organic. It doesn't exist. And I've been told that many a times by the clinic that I was with. So when I kind of seen news, I thought, what's going on here? And I kind of walked over. And that's when I met yourself. And I realized that you knew more about cannabis than the clinic I was with as a person.
Mm-hmm.
You understood cannabis on a level like I did. And you wasn't a suit hiding behind a company. And to be quite honest, that's what I'd met a lot of. A lot of these companies that I'd met were suits trying to make money. And I could spend 10 minutes in their company and know that they knew nothing about cannabis and it was all a front.
Mm-hmm.
I can see it. You just know, don't you? When somebody doesn't know and they're blagging it, you can just see it.
Yeah.
But you were different. You were like, hey, we've got this place in Aqualitis, in Canada, Aqualitis, and it's grown differently. It's living soil. And I thought, does he know what living soil is? Does he know? Does he even know what? Is he going to tell me he's got coca with some type of,
like a perlite?
Perlite and coca. And when you just started going into depth about what Wellford were doing, I was blown away. I was so impressed that I left my clinic that day, if you remember. I literally signed up to your clinic that day, and I thought, I want it. If it's true, and you've got this non-remediated organic stuff, then I want to see it. Because before I became a patient, I was actually growing my own, and I was helping people in the community set up small little grows, like 4 to 8 plants, and focus on understanding the stages of growth and how to make it better. Now, there was a big problem at the time with PGRs. A lot of people were using performance growth regulators to make these plants look bigger and better. But in reality, they weren't as good. There was diminished quality. So I understood that there's many ways to grow. You know, you can just stick a plant in a piece of soil and it will grow if you water it. But if you create the perfect environment for the plant, then its potential is just so much more. And if you leave it to be its full potential, what you will have is a really high quality, decent plant. Sometimes it might not have 8 ounces, 12 ounces on a plant. There might be, 4, 6. Other times it might not be as tall, or it might be a smaller plant. But if you grow the plant to the way nature intended and you allow it to go through that process, then you can end up with a really, really high quality strain. So that's what we were kind of focusing on, is getting the best of the best. And I had friends who were growing under LED, others who were using HPS, and they were arguing over the lumiums and testing lumiums. But I was sitting in the background, so I got the benefit of seeing all of the results without having to financially invest into doing what they're doing. I had access to see what he was doing. And then we started seeing what feed people were using and seeing who was getting the best results. We'd use magnifying glasses. And at the time, there was no real way of sending things off to be tested for heavy metals. That kind of came a little bit later. But we were all focusing on weight. We all wanted yield, more yield, and, for our money. But we kind of realized that with this more yield, we were getting less quality. It looked better, it looked good, but in reality, it wasn't. And people can see through that after a while, and they want the better quality they'd rather put. It might look like a really big, massive ounce of weed, but in reality, it's lasting half the time of the good quality stuff. So is it really worth having? And that's when we started focusing in on aeroponics and aquaponics and stuff like that, with living soil and organic food. These type of situations create the best environment for the plant. And when I heard you talking about this, I knew that what you were talking about was true. And I knew you knew what you were talking about. And I had a lot of faith behind the company, because I'd met several companies before and nobody, not one person within that company, understood cannabis. They didn't understand why organic should be an option and why it should be on the menu, or what the benefits of living soil was. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I'd see it and I was like, that's a new concept for the UK. And it's the best way to go. So while I'm out here trying to promote the best of the best and help people find the best services that are available, I can't do that with the clinic that I'm currently with, because there's better over there. And if all of this is true, the organic non-remediation and no fertilizers and stuff, then that is something I need to be getting behind.
Yeah.
And that's when I said goodbye to the clinic I was with. And I said hello to Wellford, and I haven't looked back since. I've been massively impressed with what I've seen consistently from Wellford. So well done.
Yeah,
I am massively impressed.
Nothing to do with me. It's the whole team at Wellford Clinics, the doctors, the folks answering the phone. It's just a good group of people, and we started the company based on service, because what is a company without service? What is life without service? And we're talking to people, we're talking to patients, we're talking to folks who need to be treated like family. So, when you're speaking about the organic nature of the products, this is from Aqualitas. These guys are in Nova Scotia. They joined the Wellford family back in Feb of 2025. So they were family. I'm from Massachusetts. The CEO of our company is from Massachusetts, and Nova Scotia is just up the coast, and we're all the same. We're all English, Irish, Scottish, McDonald's, O'Reilly's. So even though they're Canadian and we're American, we felt, a great kinship with that company from day one. And I was of the same impression. I was like, what are you guys? You're growing in living soil. I mean, they taught me so much about the product and about how to do it, because you don't see many people growing in living soil because expensive and it's like difficult to get right. And so not only do they grow in living soil, but they use aquaponic water from 2,500 koi fish that are living in the basement. And so they filter that water, take the waste from the fish and use it to fertilize the soil. It's the only fertilizer. And they've somehow, after the last 9 years, got this R&D project into a state that really works, creates low microbes. So yeah, we've gotten lucky. We've run into the right people. I think the one thing we've done well is just to lead with service and just kind of lead with honesty and just try to do what you say what you do. The normal things that not many businesses do, right? I mean, it's just the basic stuff of human to human interaction that not many people do. So yeah, that was a great day meeting you there. And just, you were the first person in the UK who really took this living soil aquaponic thing and were like, wow, this is super special. And here's why. I didn't even realize that it was that special until, you taught me a lot about cannabis and about, the different growing methodologies and, why this is good versus that. So that was just an auspicious day. So it was, awesome to meet you there, even though we lost a bunch of money because the day 2 was canceled. And oh my God.
Yeah, like I paid to get down there myself. Obviously, you guys have spent thousands on it. But I paid to get there and got there and it's closed and everyone's standing outside like, we can't get in. And I was like, well, I'm getting it. I'm going in to make content regardless. And thank God I did because a lot of people turned around and just left. Yeah. And I said, nah, I want to break in. So
how'd you even get in? How'd you even get in? Because they're just turning everyone.
We blagged them. I pretended that I was with Orange County OCB.
Oh, nice.
They're a couple of scouts mates that I know. So as they were all trying to get in and they were speaking with the security, I just kind of slid in and was like, I'm with them. Yeah. And they're like, okay. And they just let me go straight in.
Yeah.
So I
got my camera.
I had no pass. I had nothing. And I just literally pulled out my camera and I says to the guys, I'm going to try and take a couple of photographs of stalls that are still set up and make whatever content I can while I'm here. So it's not a wasted journey.
Yeah.
And we walked in, a couple of my friends, we all had a little look at each other. So I'm going this way, you go that way. We'll meet in the middle. And that's when we met outside there, the other clinic's little couch area and spotted that. They'd left the fridge full of juice and there's loads of stuff. And we just sat down and decided, well, they can't kick us out anymore, is it? It's already over now. And we just sat down and decided to be ourselves and make some funny, contents that maybe would have got us banned on TikTok if we'd have posted it all. But it was a brilliant day considering it was called off. I met some amazing people like yourselves. And I'm extremely grateful that I went because if I didn't go there that day, I would still be with that other clinic. I'd know nothing about you guys. And, we wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I am because what I must stress to people is it is so important to grow in the perfect conditions. Like that, if you can't get that right, then give up. You know what I mean? Because you will produce an inferior product that the market will notice is inferior. And there is so many people in the UK that grow and have learned how to grow, that they themselves understand all of this cheap imported stuff that's remediated is not always the best. And for some people, it fits into their price range and helps with their treatment. But then there's other people out there who want the better quality stuff, who are absolutely looking for it because they understand the benefits that come with it. A more balanced strain has more active ingredients in it. And you will save money by buying a more organic product than you will buying one of these Cali packs. That's kind of PGR. It's going to give you a bad chest. It'll look good. It'll smell good, look amazing for an Instagram photograph. But in reality, the medical benefit of it is quite low. And these organic strains provide so much more benefit. And you can see it even on the wallet. When you're paying for it, you're getting a hit off a gram and it's doing its job and it's lasting longer than some of these like 3.5 Cali packs you can get. And when you realize that, that's when you realize you're onto something here. And it's not all about the fancy packaging. It's definitely about the soil it was planted in and the environment that it was grown in. That's definitely the top priority when it comes to growing, I believe.
Yeah, I've now learned that it is the right way to do it. I mean, I love farming and I love planting and I love watching things grow. I mean, um, I've had the privilege of living in really, fertile places in my life and watching plants just grow right in front of your face and kind of going down a health journey and a wellness journey in my own life that leads me to believe like one day I'm actually just going to be a farmer. I'm just going to have my own acre farm.
I'm the same.
Like grow some medicinal plants and sell them at the local farmers market. Like that's the dream, right? When all this stuff is over with. But yeah, I mean, going back to what Aqualitas has built, they did this R&D for 8-9 years, like I said, to really get this thing dialed in. And they have 16 ingredients to this living soil. The living soil is made right down the street in Nova Scotia. It's very craft. It's small batch. And what they've been able to do, you're mentioning this word remediated. Another word for that is irradiated. And basically what that means is most cannabis you see out there, it's grown in a greenhouse or in an indoor facility that's not controlling the micros. So it comes out when you do the certificate of analysis, you'll see the microbials and other bacteria is just way too high. So to get it into the UK, you have to irradiate or remediate it with a device. So you have to chuck some liquid plasma or one of these things like hydrogen peroxide wash. Those are remediation techniques. Or you can use E-beam or gamma irradiation. Those are the radiation techniques. So you have to use those to reduce the micros and get it into the UK. But as you say, when you do that, it reduces other compounds in the plants, like the terpenes and other bits that are very important for the entourage effect. So, I mean, yeah, maybe you could speak just a little bit about the entourage effect of the living soil organic product versus the other products. I know you went into it a bit, but dig into that a bit more.
Yeah. So basically, I kind of realized that cannabis as a whole is more beneficial than it is separated into compounds like just THC, just CBD. There's so many different compounds within it that people don't realize. And all of these together, all of these different compounds are what people are used to. If they consume cannabis, they're used to all of these compounds. But if you try to move to like a vape pen, which is just distillate, which is just THC, there's no CBN, there's no CBD, there's no other chemicals within it. You can consume it and feel a head high. And yeah, you get a head high. But if you have all of these other chemicals, which come from having an organic plant, you get the entourage effect, which means it affects you completely different. It's not just a head high, it's a full body high. Your whole body feels relaxed rather than just feeling stoned in the head. And I kind of realized that if you take CBD with high THC, like a condiment, it helps on a completely different level. Now, what people don't realize is the plant will have either THC or CBD, and if it's high in one, it's low in the other, and it's never a balanced strain. It doesn't work like that. You either have a CBD plant or a THC plant, and if it's high in THC, low in CBD. If it's high in CBD, low in THC. But if you balance that out and take CBD with your high THC, the effects are completely different and more beneficial. And people overlook that because people don't see CBD as a psychoactive compound. They forget the benefits that CBD has on its own. And if you add that in as like a gummy, you eat CBD gummy every day and then consume your vaporizer, you'll have a completely different effect than you will without it. And I don't think people realize that. People chase the high THC strains and don't realize that the more balanced strains will have a more medicinal benefit. And that's something the UK is kind of starting to understand. But because we've been chasing all of these high THC strains for quite some time, and dabs and stuff like that, people don't realize the benefit of having a balanced strain. And even dabs, I know people say high concentrated cannabis. This is what they blame schizophrenia and psychosis on, because cannabis is way stronger now than it was back in the day. These taken in large amounts have a completely different effect on the body than what people would expect. And for me, like, when I broke my back, and that's when I realized cannabis is a pain reliever. It's just my pain's severe, and these small amounts aren't really touching the pain threshold. And I'm kind of benefiting mentally due to my PTSD. It's helping in low doses with my PTSD, but it's not helping with my back pain. So when people used to come to me and say, "Oh yeah, it helps me with pain," I'd question them and think, are they just using cannabis as an excuse and this pain as an excuse, but because it doesn't help me with pain? And then once I realized my tolerance was quite high and my pain threshold was really high, I just wasn't using the right amount of medication. That's when I realized it is a pain relief, and it's unbelievable. It can be life-changing if taken correctly. You know, I've seen some people who take cannabis and have a completely negative effect. I think everybody should see it as everyone's different, and if it helps, then it may be something to consider. But if it doesn't, then definitely don't go down that road. You know, recognize when it's being a medication and when it's being a problem. You know,
Yeah.
and respect it, because a lot of people take cannabis recreationally. They don't realize that it's having a negative effect on their life, and their life would probably be better if they put it down. You know, it's not for everyone. It's not a miracle drug. It's not going to solve everybody's problems. But for some people out there, it does benefit them, and it does help them get through some situations that, you know, life might throw at them.
With these, you can just relax and sleep. And it's just
Exactly.
that release of like, oh God, I can let the stress of life go. And that's just me. And, you know, for patients who are really dealing with life-changing pain, life-changing PTSD, life-changing anxiety.
Especially when you see what the NHS's alternative is.
Right.
You know, like I was taking a lot of tablets off the NHS, and I'd still have the problem. But now I'd have another problem, because now I'm in a different state of mind. I wouldn't be able to drive my car. I'd have stomach ulcers because the tablets that I'm taking would strip in the inside of my stomach lining.
Yeah.
So I'd have to take tablets to stop tablets from destroying my insides.
Yeah.
And it was just a snowball effect. And I wasn't clear-minded. I was losing my memory. I'd have to take so much of this medication that I couldn't remember things. Like, you'd ask me what happened yesterday, and I'd have no idea. And I'd sit down and say, listen, there's a time when you'd have to kind of recognize, is this medication working, or is it having a negative effect on my life? And the same with cannabis. If it's not providing a medicinal benefit, then it's not for you, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where I was. I was having this conflict with myself, because I could see cannabis was having a massively positive impact on my life. But the doctors were so against it. And yet what they were offering me was destroying me. It was ruining my social life. It was ruining my stomach. It was ruining my mental health. I'd wake up and I'd be so cloudy, I couldn't drive the car. I couldn't speak to people. I couldn't even hold a proper conversation, because I'd wake up and people would kind of talk to me, and it'd take me like an hour for my brain to kind of figure everything out and start talking properly. I'd get all my words mixed up. I wouldn't be able to speak properly, and it was just, I can remember it as a really miserable experience.
Yeah, I think, most pharmaceuticals, and I'm not a doctor. I have no, real deep understanding of pharmaceuticals, but what I understand is, these are molecules that do not exist in the human body, have never existed in the human body, and are being kind of shoved into the receptor in your brain to do a certain thing, not really knowing the side effects. And cannabinoids mimic the same things we have in our body. We have
Yeah. We make
endocannabinoids.
it. We've got a system.
Right. We already make it. We make anandamide. And so we're actually putting in these molecules that our body absolutely accepts, understands, and knows how to process. Natural. So, I mean, this is the stigma. This is the battle, the hurdle that we have to jump over. Even though patients like yourself and loads of patients in the UK and Europe know that this product is helpful.
Yeah, like I believe the doctors are perpetuating the stigma as well. Like doctors would tell me they won't give me cannabis because it's unlicensed, and I'd sit there and say, well, is that the only reason? And they say, yeah, because it's an unlicensed medication. And I'd say, well, why have you been giving me lidocaine patches for the last 12 months? And they kind of look at me and I say, because they're unlicensed too. I said, you made me sign a little form to say that I'd accept this unlicensed medication. Did you not? And he said, yeah. I said, so why can't you do that with cannabis? And it was just a complete no.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, and I've said it to the doctor as well. I said, you can't paint in nature. You can't own nature. I said, so I understand why these companies pay you a lot of money and take you away to these nice fancy places and you're prescribing their medication. I said, I can understand all that. I said, but you're not helping me. Like I'm coming to your services for help and you're not helping me, which means you're not doing the job you signed up to do. And now you're stuck in this circle where the law suggests you can only talk about pharmaceuticals. The law prevents you from talking about this medication. And they were like, yeah. I said, well, then why are you still in a job that doesn't allow you to do that job? Don't you think advocacy your end should be done?
Yeah.
And the doctors would be like, well, there's nothing we can do. And I'd be like, well, that's why I'm doing what I do. Because a lot of people say there's nothing you can do. And if we all just say there's nothing we can do, then we just accept the situation we're in. And I don't accept the situation. I want the situation to change for the better. And the only way I'm going to achieve that is by sticking my neck out and showing people I'm not the average riffraff. I've not got a massive criminal record. I've come out of the British Army with an injury and cannabis is helping my life. I'm only trying to be a decent dad to my kids. I'm not trying to make thousands of pounds selling drugs. I don't sell anything. I don't sell anything on social media. And I believe the moment you start to sell a product, you're obliged to kind of say certain things about that product. Because people who sell on like the TikTok shop, you can see these videos. They don't care what's in their hand. They just want the commission off the product that's coming through because, it's a business for somebody. So I kind of looked at it like it's not a business for me. I've tried making money on TikTok, and because of the content I make, sometimes TikTok pay me a lot of money, and then other times they just shut the account down and take all of that money. And they took 34 accounts off me. Some of them were thousands and thousands of pounds in. And watching thousands of pounds that I've earned be taken away from me for no legal reason is depressing. And it put me in a situation where I felt like I was being robbed now by TikTok and by the people who are reporting the content. And it was getting to me. So I decided, if I'm not making money, I'm doing it for fun. If I lose the account, I've lost nothing. There's nothing sitting there waiting for me. There's no financial incentive. I don't have to wake up every day and make this video for this company and say, look at this product here. And I can just be authentic and be me. And people see that. People know when you're real. People know when you're trying to sell a dodgy product or whether you're being honest. And I'm the type of person who only listens to people like that.
Yeah.
If I think that you're selling a dodgy product or you're only in it to make money, then I'm definitely going to pull away from you. even if you've got a good product, because I don't feel the trust's there, and I don't feel like you're being loyal to the customer. I feel like you're just a suit trying to make some money. So that's where Bigg Fozz came from.
Yeah.
I'm now like the free information man on TikTok, trying to just help people understand. I spend most of my time filling out forms, to be honest with you, for clinics, and not just Wellford. Like, some people say, I want to join this other clinic, and I really want to join. I say, okay, Sam, I've gave you the best information, and most of the time they join that clinic and join over to Wellford a couple of months later. Some GPs make it such an ordeal that people just give up, and they're like, well, I can't get medical because my doctor won't give me the forms I need, so I've had enough, whatever, I'm going my own way. I'll just use the legal. And I say, you do realise you can just pay Wellford and they'll do it for you. And they're like, what do you mean? I just tick the little box and they will get your medical records for you. You don't need to worry about any of that. I'm like, seriously? Yeah. And they tick the box. But I've got something that no other TikTok creators probably got. And that is an inbox filled with grateful people who are just saying thank you, who have took the time out of their day to send me a message and just say, thank you, Fozz, for like sharing this content, because without it, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have known. I'd still be getting pressed by the housing or social services or the school or the police. And without these videos, I wouldn't have a clue. And it's them messages that I get a kick off. Like, I don't get a kick out of making a video and getting paid 20 quid for it. I get a kick out of somebody sending me an authentic message saying that I've actually helped them. And I do get a kick out of it. Like, it sounds weird. It makes me feel good inside. And if that was the money of life, then I'd be rich, because I've got so many people around me who are grateful for the fact that I'm there. And even though I lose my accounts as often as I do, I just make another one and I just keep going again. And I could have 50,000 followers, 10,000 followers. It doesn't really matter. The videos still go viral. I put a video up like 2 days ago on 150,000 views. It's not a medical video, but I still manage to get my page out there and go viral all the time. You don't need followers on the internet to be seen. You just need to be posting the content that people want to see, and it will find its audience.
Yeah. I mean, I think you are one of the most authentic people I've seen on the internet or in my travels in life. I lived in New York, I lived in London, working in finance, working in business. People like you with the real heart, they don't exist in these cities, that I run into. So it's just so like refreshing to bump into someone like you who actually has this heart and this way about them. And you really are like that. The time we've hung out in person, you really are like that. You care about people. You take care of people. And no one has to ask you to do it. You just do it. It's just part of who you are. So, it's just been great to know you. I wonder if you could just speak about some of the people at Wellford that that have helped you out. Like, is there anyone specific?
Over the time, everybody really, yourself has been the most important, because I've dealt via yourself quite a lot and we've communicated quite a lot, and I do feel like you are more switched on than the average person when it comes to cannabis. You have got a passion for it, so you understand cannabis, and I don't think everybody understands cannabis within Wellford like you do, but I do believe they all bring value to the table, and that's unique. That I like that. But within Wellford, what I would say, like, my doctor is so supportive. Like, do you know when you speak to the NHS, you sit there and the doctor's like sitting on this pedestal and he's the be all and end all type of thing. But I don't feel like that when I speak to Wellford. Like, when I speak to my doctor and I explain things, the doctor really listens, and sometimes the doctor learns from me. And I understand that not everybody has the knowledge I have around cannabis. I've spent the last 10 years trying to find this information so that when I sit with a doctor, I can have an informed debate, shall we say, and hold my own. I can hold my own, and I can come with the facts. But when I come to Wellford with the doctor and I say whatever I say, like, the doctor's always listening and always takes on board everything I said. Like, I've mentioned taking CBD with high THC strains.
Yeah.
And then I know that doctor spoke about that with other people, because I'm with them in a signal group, and these people reach out to me, and I've said, have you considered taking high CBD, with these high THC strains? I'm like, oh, do you know what? My doctor said that the other day. I said, he was a doctor, and it was my doctor. And I thought, so that information is going out. It's not just being gatekept and just dismissed. Like, the doctor's learning from me and using that information with their patients. And I think that is exactly what we need. We need people who are all working together to get to where we all need to be, but not adding lies and not trying to mislead people to get to where we need to be, but just being honest and genuine and pointing people towards the right facts and information, really.
Yeah.
You don't find that, by the way, with other clinics. I've been with other clinics, and I'll be quite honest, Sapphire doesn't exist anymore. They've rebranded, but they were the first clinic I was with. And when I was with them, I was so pissed off every day with what was going on that I just gave up on them. And I told them on the phone, I said, why are you prescribing cannabis when you don't even know anything about cannabis? And the doctor would say, well, so you're just a suit. Like, you don't even know. How do you know that you're giving benefit to the patient? How are you supposed to care for somebody and recognize problems that may be occurring if you don't even understand the situation? And I got that from the doctors. I'd speak to them about simple things and they wouldn't have a clue. And I'd think, this person's looking after me. This person's supposed to be caring for me and doesn't understand the situation like I do.
Yeah.
What am I going to benefit from this? Nothing.
Yeah, I know.
And they sent me trim. I got this pot of trim, and I looked in. I phoned them and I said, there's 4 grams of bud, and that is called shake. That's what we throw away. Why have you sent me that? And she was like, no, we believe that that's got medical benefits. And I said, do you? That you think that's medical benefit? And she said, yeah. And I turned around and I poured it in the bin in front of her. I said, you won't get any more of my money. I said, if you think that if you give that to people, I said, I'm not even sending you that back for a refund, because you'll give that to somebody else. Yeah. I said, that's bin material. I said, that is what you throw away. And it worries me that you're selling that, because I'm on the internet asking people to join your services, and that's what you're sending people. I said, I can't get behind that. You have to change. And they were like, you do as you're told. And I said, no, I don't. I said, I'll just leave and I'll tell everybody what Sapphire is playing at. Yeah. I did. And Sapphire shut down within 6 months of me leaving their company. Whole company was gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think they turned.
And I'm not saying I had anything to do with that by any means. That's got nothing to do with me. But if the industry will see you for who you are, and if you're going to sell crap, then you're going to need to change your name, because that's exactly what they have to do.
Yeah.
People seen straight through it, realise these people don't care. And with Wellford, we don't feel like that. You can see all of the stuff people are posting, and the amount of support people have for Wellford is unreal.
Yeah. There was a time, with our app being down for a minute, that we got a lot of flack. But I think the fundamentals were always there, that we actually care about the patient. We always try to call, folks back when they call us morning, noon, and night. We're working on that too. It's like, we want to make it as easy as possible to get in touch with us. So we're working on things, but we're trying to grow slow. We haven't grown like other clinics. And it's, sometimes that's difficult from a financial perspective, because we're not throwing huge financial gains on the board. We're growing slow, organically, and it's just like, it takes time. And so sometimes when we get an influx of patients, we can't service them in the way that we want until we grow and morph and just get into a better service situation like we want to be. So, always
Even
it's never our intention to leave anyone out. We're always trying to get back
definitely,
to people.
definitely. I think even when the app went down, you just handled it really well. And what you need to remember is everyone has problems. Let's just look at Christmas. What happened with them other clinics that couldn't provide all of their patients with product over Christmas? And Wellford stepped in and were like, well, hang on, guys, do you need any help?
Yeah.
And you guys went out your way to help another clinic look after their patients. You don't see that. They don't phone up and say, would Wellford like any help? Would your patients like any help? You guys are just like me in the sense where when you see a problem, you don't just watch it unfold. You do what you need to do to resolve the problem. And I was so overwhelmed when you guys reached out to patients at different clinics and said, look, you're going to be left with no medication over Christmas. We would like to help. We have stock. If you would like to send his prescription here, we will sort you out. And I just sat there and thought, this is definitely the clinic I need to be with. Like, Cure Relief wouldn't do that. They wouldn't be reaching out to another clinic and saying, do you want us to help fill the void? We can help your patients not get left without over Christmas. And that's morals, and that's what we need.
Yeah,
definitely.
It is, because that's the stuff that's the real stuff, and that's why people keep coming back. So luckily, that's just who we are, and we don't have the marketing dollars that Curaleaf have, that Alternaleaf have, that Relief have, right? But this word of mouth thing, through you and through others, is really starting to work, and it's we're our patients, the patient numbers are growing, but they're not growing in an astronomical way, and we're not caning it. We're getting by. And we want to be able to always service people in the best way possible. Even if we get to the point in a few years down the line where we're very big, we still want to have this kind of mom and pop feel, because that's how I would want to be treated. I hate calling up a company and sitting on hold for 15, 20 minutes. And that's what every single company turns into. Let's be honest. They start like this, and then once they get bigger, they just send you to some foreign country to talk to someone who doesn't really speak English. And we just don't want to become that company. So we're doing everything in our power, and it's not easy because we don't make enough as much money, but we're trying to do it so that, everyone can see, oh, we actually give a shit. So, I'm glad to hear that, it's kind of coming through that way from your side, which is great. But a couple more questions about just being a veteran. Like, do you think, I think you probably do, but do you think there's still a big stigma in the veteran community over medical cannabis?
Yeah, especially in the UK. I know that in Canada, it's kind of it's respected a lot more. Yeah. And in Canada, I do believe they sued the government, won, and the veterans kind of got a lot of respect over there. And now their healthcare is provided for them by the state. Well, in the UK, we're kind of told as veterans that we're taking priority services, but it's only NHS services. So they won't pay for private healthcare for veterans. So we haven't got access to the same services that they have over in Canada.
Yeah.
Hopefully things will change in the UK, and we'll start to respect our veterans in the same way other countries respect theirs. But as it stands in the UK, the fact that charities exist for veterans should say it all. We're not looked after by the governments. We're kind of left behind, and no one's educated about this subject. There's a lot of veterans out there who would massively benefit from cannabis, definitely. These are the ones who have tried everything else and there's no other options, and they're still in, desperate need of help. I do believe cannabis can help them people, but getting the information to them and changing the stigma surrounding cannabis at the moment is the issue, because they just see it as a drug problem, and now you just want me to have a habit or, something like that. And because the NHS don't respect it and these people have got to pay for it, it's a financial burden too. And not a lot of people who are struggling have got a lot of spare cash. So to access medical cannabis for a lot of people just isn't an option. It's do I eat or do I get medication this week? And that's a valid reason for some people. You know, not a lot of people are on enough money to survive, let alone pay for medication. So these people are forgotten and left. Some of them end up homeless and unfortunately take their own lives. And I think the NHS should be doing more to help these people, especially when they see people like me. I'm living proof. I've attempted suicide because of my PTSD several times in the past, and my life changed massively when I started taking medical cannabis. And I've never been in that state of mind or felt like that ever since I've been a patient. So I know that cannabis can help people with PTSD, especially from war. I'm not sure about other types of PTSD, but PTSD as a whole gives you a lot of anxiety, a lot of self-doubt, bad sleep, just bad thought patterns, you know. And once you start thinking about things, you overthink and it just snowballs. And with cannabis, it takes away all of that. Like, I know I've still got a sore back and I know I've still got PTSD, but I don't care. You know, I take a spliff and it's kind of like, whatever. But when I haven't got cannabis in my system, I notice it more. And I think that's because of my PTSD, and that's because and then it winds me up because I think this PTSD is taking over my life and I can't stop it. And I recognize it and I get frustrated by the things that I'm doing. And then I focus on it, I hyper focus on it, and then I realize that's PTSD. That's because of PTSD. I'm not going to sleep tonight because of PTSD. And then I just wind myself up, and then you're just sitting there with so much anxiety and stress inside of you that you can't even eat. You know, you couldn't sit down and eat a meal. You just want to break free or end it all. That's an actual situation people find themselves in. And ever since I took cannabis, that's never even been an option. It's like, there is a solution. I can get rid of this stress. I can get rid of this anxiety. And I definitely can sleep tonight. So what am I worried about? Nothing. For me, it's finances, but the army do pay me a pension. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to pay for it, whether it's private or not. But if it wasn't private and it was free, I'd have a lot more money to be able to do things with my family and stuff like that. And that was the idea I was sold. You know, the NHS is supposed to look after us as veterans, and we're supposed to be priority. We have private health in the army, so why don't we have it when we leave? You know, why don't they allow me to use your services after I've left? But they'd pay thousands and thousands of pounds for cognitive therapy and to stay in these stately homes and go to places like combat stress and stuff like that. All these charities will fund that, but they won't give me the medication that actually helps me. So I think more's needed to be done to kind of take the stigma away from cannabis. And more is needed to be done to highlight the benefits of cannabis for soldiers with PTSD. Because it's life-changing. It really, really is life-changing. You can go from being so stressed and so depressed to just feeling, I wouldn't say numb, but all of them feelings are just gone. You know, there's no shakiness from the anxiety. There's no deep breathing. There's none of, you're just like, fuck it. That's what I see it as. It's like, fuck it. I'm happy.
I mean, it's like we're only here for a short time, right? We have these lives that are so quick. Why not feel better? Right? It's like, why not ameliorate the symptoms? It just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And that's just something in my life that I've realized. It's like, oh, okay, I could feel better now. Do it. Let's do it. I want to feel better. I only have so much time with my daughter. I only have so much time with my partner. You know, it's like, I want to feel.
Well, as you know, my dad's in hospice, and my mum died like 13 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember when my mum was dying, she phoned me up one day and said, "Come to the hospital and make me 12 edible cakes." And I said, okay. So I went to the hospital, and outside the hospital is 12 cancer patients sitting in wheelchairs with my mum.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking like, what's going on? And she said, "Give us the cakes." And I said, "Mum, what are you doing?" And she was like, "We're going to die." She said, "Do you think we give a fuck? Like, we're literally going to die."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Give me the cakes." And I gave her the cakes and I left. And then my sister phoned me because she worked on a ward, and she said that the hospital's just been raided by the police. Some nurses have found cake wrappers here, there, and everywhere. It smell like cannabis, and everyone's high. So I phoned my mum and I said, "What have you done?" And she was like, "Listen, go to McDonald's and get me 15 cheeseburgers." And I was like, "Oh my God." So I turned up to the hospital. I turned up with all of these cheeseburgers to this cancer ward. And the police just like look at me, watch me go past, watch me go to my mum. And then my mum's going, "She wants a cheeseburger. She's on cheeseburger and fries." And I dished everything out. And then I kind of walked past my sister and shook her head and then say, "What's going on?" And then the policeman went, "Well, I think it's probably safe to suggest that everyone with a McDonald's is probably high." And we'll just leave it at that. You know, I think you are right. There is something in here, but I think we'll just leave it.
Well, these folks are having trouble eating because they're on chemo. And, you know, what's the biggest thing? It's chemotherapy, nausea, and vomiting, and the wasting that comes with it during cancer treatment. I mean, this is one of the biggest factors of why people don't make it. So why this product is not being given out by oncologists in every cancer ward in the country boggles my mind. Because either these people are dying or they're in horrible, horrible pain because of the treatment. And this stuff helps. It takes the pain away. It keeps your quality of life up, and it allows you to sleep and eat. It's like, this is bananas to me. You know, it just does not compute. And it feels like there's just something totally wrong with the situation, and it doesn't feel like a medical reason. You know, it's definitely something to do with money. You know, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's something to do with money, which is annoying. But, you know,
there will be some alternative medication that is being prescribed in its place, doing a worse job.
Right.
Like, my dad's got cancer now, and he's struggling to eat now. He's dying, and he's definitely finding benefit from cannabis.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that there's some types of cannabis that I think are more beneficial than others, like RSO, which is a full spectrum oil. This isn't found within the cannabis industry at the moment, RSO. Now, there is some facts on the internet, or I wouldn't say facts, I'd say there's some stories on the internet where people have documented their own treatment and added in RSO to their regime and had unbelievable results.
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned recently is, like, okay, maybe it's not the cannabis that's curing these diseases, but it's the fact that your body is getting into homeostasis so that it can do its job. I mean, we have cancers forming in our bodies all the time, but our immune system is killing them off. You know, we have cells that go and kill the cancer. But if I'm stressed, I'm not sleeping, I'm worried about all this other shit, I don't think my body works in the way that it's meant to work. You know, I feel like that's what's doing it. And that's what is why this stuff is so powerful. It's because it's just allowing your body to do what it normally would do. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like giving your body the power it already has.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
I wouldn't say it's a miracle drug, but I'd say it should definitely be considered a treatment for quite a lot of conditions, and it needs to be taken more seriously in the UK.
Yeah.
Because there's people out there whose lives would be turned around with medical cannabis, And the stigma is mainly what's stopping these people from accessing the services.
Yeah, I mean, what advice would you give a veteran who's looking to try medical cannabis?
I'd definitely suggest it myself for PTSD, but I'd also there's a lot of veterans out there who sometimes get diagnosed with PTSD, but also have underlying conditions like bipolar or psychosis, but they don't speak about these problems because they know that it's an instant write-off.
Mm-hmm.
So there is these soldiers out there. There's a lot of them out there who don't just have PTSD; they have other conditions, and identifying them first would be the most important thing, because you don't want somebody taking a medication and then it turning into psychosis because they've already got psychosis that they're not telling you about, because that just looks bad for cannabis patients as a whole. This new patient's now developed psychosis,
Mm-hmm.
when in actual fact, they probably had it before. And I think there's a lot of soldiers out there who have got personality disorders and PTSD. And I don't think it would help everyone, but there is a lot of people out there who don't have personality disorders and PTSD whose lives would be absolutely changed by medical cannabis. But I think you would know if you're one of them people and you feel like you're hiding the fact that you might have a personality disorder, then it's to be taken with caution. Because the army do teach you to recognize these symptoms, and they do tell you to suppress them. They know that you can't hold a weapon if you've got depression, or you can't hold a weapon if you're stressed. You're not allowed. You've got to be 100% mental stability. And some of these soldiers are out there knowing that they're stressed, knowing they're depressed. And probably some of them have got bipolar, and they're hiding it. They're masking these conditions. So I would say, if you're a soldier and you feel like you've been diagnosed with PTSD, or you feel like you've got PTSD, a diagnosis is the first step, because it might be something else. You might not have PTSD, you might have bipolar, and you might not know. But if you have got PTSD, consider it. And if you see the benefit, consider it. But if you're negatively affected in any way, accept it and walk away. It's not for everyone. It's not a miracle drug, and it will not help everyone. But there is a lot of people that it can help, and it's only helpful when it's helping. If it's having a negative effect on your life, then it's not helping, and people need to recognize that and kind of come away from it.
Mm-hmm. That's a good balanced approach. All right, man. Is there anything else you want to say to wrap up?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
One more thing, unrelated to anything. Can you hear the dog barking its head off next door coming through the microphone?
Yeah, a little bit.
They've gone on holiday next door, and I can't. I've got this dog that's just. There's nothing I can do about it, and I'm thinking,
oh man, no, it's
maybe
fine.
the sound reductions took it out the background, or maybe this dog is just gonna yap through this whole bloody.
Oh man, you did well. I didn't know that was a dog. I don't think anyone's gonna know that was a dog. It's just. Yeah, I think we can probably get background noise out. Which is fine.
I've been sitting here thinking, I hope they can't hear that. I hope that's not going through. And I'm looking at the little microphone thing down here, and it's not bouncing every time it's barking. Yeah. But it hasn't stopped. I don't think it's stopped barking since I've sat here. So
oh my God, unhappy dog.
I hope it's not on the video. Yeah, she's on holiday tomorrow.
Bloody dog, but that's fine. But thank you so much, Fozz, for being part of the podcast, the first episode. And we'll have you back on at some point soon.
Absolutely.
And continue on.
Anytime.
All right, brother.
If there's anything anyone would like to know, if you want to follow my TikTok, my Instagram gets taken down a lot. My YouTube's not possibly the best place for medical information. It's just more of an adventure page. But my TikToks are the best place to find any information on medical cannabis. Or you can always send me a message. Reach out to me if there's anything you want to know or anything like that. I'm always around. I might not answer straight away, but I definitely respond to everyone. So please reach out if anyone wants any help, and I'm always there.
And what's your handle at Bigg Fozz?
It's Bigg Fozz with 2 G's, so it's Big G Fozz 420, or just Big G Fozz. There's 2 accounts. So
brilliant.
Yeah, but if you just type in Bigg Fozz to TikTok, I definitely pop up.
Okay, brother. Thank you for the time.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right, man.
Enjoy, guys.
Talk
Speak to you soon.
Later. Bye.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Wellford Podcast. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen.